Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Good day to you, ma'am.
Good day to you, sir. Good day.
Good day.
Good day.
It is a good day.
It is a great day. The sun is out. As soon as the sun comes out,
I know.
I feel like the world is a great place again.
Speaking of the sun being out, I don't tell you about this, but I got the tracking number for the earbuds that shoot light into your ears and make you feel like you've had extra amounts of sun and then charge you.
Yeah, that's they charge you. Listen over here. We have like seasonal depression disorder or whatever.
Yeah. And so there's like earbuds that you put them in, and the light shoots you in the ears, and then it makes you feel like you got a bunch of sun.
Yeah.
And then you run around screaming and yelling. Wee.
It's like I don't feel sad when the sun's not out. I don't even notice. Like I don't consciously think.
But then when the sun comes out, you're like,
I feel amazing.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of amazingness, I have recently.
Speaking of amazingness,
let me talk about me. We recently had some friends come over, and they got up in my dioramas business that I've been working on, and I'm at 90% complete.
Ooh.
And I recently made some more furniture for it, and I'm pretty excited about people getting stoked about my nerdness.
So many people on Instagram are loving it.
It's true. We got to send some work in progress pics out there.
Yeah, we do.
And some stuff like that. But it's so fun to just do something. I was talking to a client the other day, and then I'll wrap this up. But they are very skilled at the profession that they're in. And they learn from a young age how to be very organized. And in their organizational journey and life journey, they lost the luster of being able to create for the sake of creation. So one of the homework I gave them
was to build a diorama.
Close. I actually gave them the homework of buying a big Lego set, like from a city set, building it, and then bashing it with a bat. Because it would be completely nonsensical, both things.
It would be completely nonsensical.
And it would bring them back to their childlike wonder.
I did not know this is where you're going. That got me. Because I can already picture it. You spent all this time working on it, then you
go, bam! Yeah, it's literally it had no purpose doing the Lego set for himself, but it has especially no purpose because he just destroyed it. And he's like, that sounds amazing and terrible, and I love it.
That's
So
funny.
we'll see how he does with that.
Good job creating creative homework.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're smart.
I like homework.
You're good at what you do.
Well, that's what they say.
That's what they all say.
That's what they do say.
That's why you have a waiting list.
So let's talk a little bit about today's episode. So last week we gave an episode chronicling the emotional journey of your physical body. We're starting to talk about the sickness that you've been in.
Yep.
And we shared with everybody. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. It's an amazing episode. I loved how raw you were in that one. We'll probably get to a raw and real spot with me in this episode. We kind of cut it in two.
Doubt it. You're heartless and cold.
Yeah, I am heartless and cold.
That's not true.
And one of the things we wanted to be able to tackle today is going to be getting into a little bit more of the practical physical problems. I don't know. We'll kind of see how it evolves. I'm just being present with it. And
I'm going to keep sharing the revelations that I've had.
Sure. And some of how I've responded to your physical problems, how my process has been. So we didn't get to that last week. But one of the things that we did share in some of coming into this is that we've had the opportunity to go to Spain
to a doctor who's worked with so many people
and seen incredible success. It's a last minute thing that came up. And so with that, it's a very expensive process. And in the last couple of months, Abby has been developing this thing on compassion and wanting to actually create a message for compassion. And it really sparked
it's our life message.
It's our life
really,
message.
it's our life message. Yeah. We've been talking about it and teaching it for years, but we've never made a resource that people can just have and do.
So we thought, Abby got inspired to go, hey, we should actually launch this together. And it'd be a really great way to fund that journey.
Yeah.
So that you can go over and get that. And again, it
feels like a fun way to invite people onto the journey with me. Like when they buy it, they can know I'm helping support her be able to do this.
Yeah. Every time you buy one of those, either for yourself or someone else that you go, oh, that message resonates for someone that I know, and I really want to give them the gift of that. It's also giving a gift to Abby and her journey of healing. And you're getting to be part of not only the process, but also the victory that we're going to share as things develop in the coming months and stuff like that. So it's a really exciting thing. Stoked for Spain. Have no idea how to speak any level of Spanish. I do remember,
Albano.
Well, Albano, yes. But I have one phrase that is just written in my soul and my mind. Silencio, por favor. Because it got yelled at me all the time by my Spanish teacher in middle school.
Because you're just talk. We
got to give ourselves Spanish names, and I called myself Nacho. Nacho! Silencio, por favor. Only a kid in middle school calls himself Nacho and calls that Spanish.
That's amazing.
So jumping into it, we're going to go dive into this and continue with this process. Thank you for joining us today. Mm-hmm. And where do you want to go with this, kid?
Okay, well, I wanted to start with, if you listened to us last week, I'm processing about a very vulnerable process. I think the emotions I've found around sickness have by far stretched me in vulnerability more than anything ever has before. Yeah. And having to face when kind of like when the fire gets turned up so intense, you can't not engage. You can't not get healing.
Right, like something begins to happen that it brings everything to the surface.
Yeah, you can't avoid it anymore. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so this last year, I had a lot of that where I could tell this is the journey. And I wish people knew this is what the healing journey looks like. It's thing after thing after thing fall into place, but not in your timing and how you would want it. And you can't tell that it's going to be a big revelation when it's happening. And you can't tell that it's going to unlock things while it's going on. It feels very slow and tedious and like nothing is happening.
Yeah.
The whole time. And then you look back and you're like, whoa, we just accomplished a whole mountain. But in the middle, you're like, I'm dying. I'm not getting anywhere. There's no movement. I'm like stuck in quicksand. And so for me, I wanted to share the process because I really believe something I have so much faith for is that when you intentionally go after an area of your life, resources, conversations, revelations, things will come to you in that area if you are intentionally engaging.
I think that there's a really big fear for people, like when they need something because of our emotional abandonment as people, like, oh, if I need something, it's never going to come to me. So the minute they embark upon journeys, they're like, I don't know how to do this. How is this going to happen? And really it's about the idea that there is a divine Father who's like knocking on our door, waiting for us to open. And he's going, hey, kiddo, whenever you want to open up the door of your will, because it says waiting, he stands at the door and knocks, waiting for us to open. Yeah. Which is, again, that act of will. And will is at the foundation of love. Mm-hmm. Like love cannot exist without the ability to have will. And so will won't be violated. And so there's something beautiful that the minute my will says, yes, I am ready, that the door, and you open the door through that, yes, it blows right in, love blows in, answers begin to explode into your life, and you begin this beautiful journey that's only fully seen on the other side of it.
Yeah. And you really have two choices. I could have spent this whole year just surviving, because it would have been nicer to not dig into my deepest emotional pain.
Oh yeah,
while
just
also
waiting for it to get over.
Emotional, physical pain ever. But I like to use momentum to my advantage.
Yeah.
I like to use what the season is giving me to launch me forward. I think I got farther in healing this year than any year of my life. Yeah. Because I used the pain as leverage. Like I'm in so much pain. I've got to get out of God to deal with this. So I kind of wanted to keep talking. Last session, I started going on the journey of the lessons that I've been learning about my emotions and physically and how it's connected. And so I'm just going to keep sharing my journey and what I learned. So one of the things I learned was that my body was for me, not against me.
Yeah, which you at the core of yourself for our whole marriage is felt some level of my body
Betrayal
is in betrays me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm at war with this thing. This thing doesn't want me to succeed.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm trying to love you and take care of you, and all you ever do is fight me. And I started the journey of reconciling with my body in like learning to love it and learning how to speak kindly to it and have patience for it. But this deep place, I remember as I was recognizing, I have these two modes in my life. This was part of how I disassociated. I had the totally self-sufficient part of me, super powerful, independent woman who can lead and be in charge and make things happen. And then this other side of me that is like the sick, defeated, can't do anything part of me.
Totally.
So I call it like the big and little. There's like a big person in me that's like the CEO. And then there's like a little kid that's like, and laying on the couch. And so what I realized is I had to get rid of big to get rid of little, because they were tied to each other, and nobody likes
they were trying to balance each other out.
And so I can't, like, big is nice. Like, I like being a boss at my life, and I like being able to get things done.
That's
and
real.
Like, it feels so good and invigorating to be independent and powerful. But I recognize like that will always send me into, because you can't actually sustain that. Turns out you can't be the biggest person in the world all the time.
No. And it also creates a void of intimacy and relationship, because once you're really big and you don't have need, then you can't create on-ramps for people to be close and love you really well.
And there's no vulnerability in it.
No, there isn't.
And so, and I had in all fairness, I had always had friends that I was little with.
Yes, that's true.
So I didn't just live in big, but because I had either big or little, and they got both.
Right.
And so I've been on the journey of reconciling. I could tell this year, like, I do have, and it took, listen, I remember just crying. I was talking to Paul Young. He's the guy who wrote The Shack. And I was like, I have been a part of sickness in my life. And that was like devastating to say. Like, my emotions, the logic I came up with, the protectors I came up with from my childhood I was like, I know that it's been a part of how sickness has stayed.
Yeah.
Because
I played a role in
I played a role in it. And I never consciously did. There's not ever once that I have wanted to be sick. There's not ever, I have fought hard against sickness, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And not being defeated by it and not letting it control my life.
There's no part of you that I've ever been like, oh, she knows she's getting something out of being sick and she loves this.
Totally.
I never.
But when I was a kid, and every sick person has a different story of what they learned, but when I was a kid, I learned that I got compassion and connection when I was sick. My dad was so nice when I was sick. My mom was so nice. I was allowed to be taken care of. It's an area that I let down my guard a little bit. And so there's this little girl screaming inside of me. I could see, I remember realizing, of course I got so sick last year because the year before that, my parents got divorced. Justin had a nervous breakdown. I got put in charge of my mom's. I'm her legal guardian now. I'm in charge of her life. So all of my fears of I have to be big all the time and take care of everything came up. And I did. I handled it like a freaking boss. I shoved, like, I just survived is what I did. And then I saw, oh, my body showed up. My body showed up to protect me. It was like, oh, you're making sure everyone else is okay? We're going to literally shut you down so that your needs matter too. And here's the truth. You always wanted to meet my needs. You were never like, you were just in a hard season. And I learned, here's the truth. My body really taught me that I was being over responsible for my parents. Cause when I got sick, I'm like, I can't do these things that I was doing before. And look at you guys are all fine. So I've been watching it and being like, okay, I want to meet your needs and say that you matter as much as a human as everyone around you, so that I don't need sickness to say that I matter.
I want to show up and actually create self-care in my world that's so tangible that something at a deeper level never needs to be sick in order to get its needs met.
I remember one of my friends, she talked about her dad when he was dying, and he was fully taken care of when he was dying. And he had grown up during World War II and had lost his parents, was an orphan from a young age, horror stories about what he went through in the war and his aloneness. And,
wow.
And so when he was dying, like the last, 6 months of his life, they fed him, they bathed him, they did everything for him. And she's like, I've never seen him so happy. I've never seen my dad so happy. He's finally getting nurture.
Right. And he finally had a reason that he could get nurture.
Yeah. He could allow himself.
He's like, oh yeah, I'm sick. I couldn't do it. Everyone sees that I can't.
Yes.
So I can surrender to this and let myself soak it in.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember she told me that story years ago, and we both knew, he was missing nurture. And I from this story on, I was like, God, I don't want that. I don't want to need to be sick in order to get nurture. And again, none of that is conscious thinking. Ever. I don't think he consciously thought that. I've never consciously thought, I want compassion. I'll be sick. Like there's no part of my consciousness. Is that how you say it? Consciousness?
Sure. I don't know. Keep going. We'll see.
There's no part of that is in agreement with sickness.
Yeah.
All of my thoughts, all of my words, but the humility to be like, are there payoffs?
Yeah.
That I have been living with? Are there reasons that it protects me? Like, we're in the best place we've ever been in our marriage, but sickness protected me from my dad's anger. So, I had to deal with unresolved issues with your, I want to clean out any of the reasons that I have found in my life. So one of them has been this all sufficient thing, and talking through recognizing pain as a kid, and what it has done is put me I have to learn vulnerability. Now I was dying this year because I'm I preach vulnerability. I teach vulnerability. I am the queen of vulnerability. So then to recognize that there's all these places, because I could share anything about my life. It very rarely is vulnerable for me. Information about me is not super vulnerable. There are times I can definitely feel I would say the podcast stretches me in vulnerability, but on a regular basis, I feel so much like I know what's going on inside of me and whatever, so I can give it to somebody. This year has been facing that great aloneness that comes from self-sufficiency, which is when I'm self-sufficient, I'm in control.
Yep.
And so when I talk about vulnerability, for me, it's not I shared this. Are you going to like me? It's literally letting go of being self-sufficient.
Yep.
So I remember time after time after time of having to sob cry in front of my friends about how much pain I'm in physically. Sob cry in front of my friends about how deep the ache is, what's going on. I've called people over and over again.
I've watched you. Yeah. So many times you're on a phone and I'm listening to you share. I'm like, wow, she's just giving over and over again, right in the midst of the suffering.
Yeah. Cause it's one thing to tell people about something. It's another thing to feel in front of people. And that's what I recognize. I can tell you all day long, I'm freaking out about da 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 da. That's not vulnerable for me. No. What is vulnerable is for me to cry about it and feel in your presence.
Yeah.
I was feel everything on my own and then tell you about it.
Totally.
And so I remember I went out to lunch with these two women. I was in Texas and we had been hanging out, and I recognized I have all these rules in my head that aren't necessary. We'd already had the meal, blah, blah, blah. And I could just feel tell them everything and how messy you feel and how broken you feel and what it's like. And I knew I wasn't telling them for them to respond well and love me so well. I literally was telling them because I needed to practice being little and messy.
Yeah. In the moment.
Connected to my emotions, just feeling it, giving space for my emotions to show up. And so I did. I spent an hour at this restaurant after all of our food was gone and knowing they might have things to do, again, positioning myself as I'm allowing myself to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And just giving that way. So it's been a really beautiful...
Which hold on a second. I want to throw some things in there. What was really beautiful is that they really showed up.
Oh, totally.
They so showed up to be fully present there. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of people long for someone to show up in their story. Like the vulnerability that you acted on and what you received on the other end, people all want to receive. I mean,
they want to receive the love,
but they actually do want to. They're like, "Oh, I wish someone would come see me like this.
Comfort me. Come believe in me."
But they're not willing to actually walk through the gateway that enacts all of that happening. And so I think that that's something. If some of you out there are even listening to this, like, I want people to do that. Well, stop hiding, start sharing. And I know that can be scary. And one of the things that you said was like, I was first and foremost just doing it for me.
Yep. They
may not have been able to respond well, but I was going to live a lifestyle of this. And so some of you have created reasons or for your hesitation, like, oh, this is justifiable. People haven't responded well in the past. Well, it doesn't matter until you get past people and you start to just get into, this is my lifestyle. You won't actually reap the benefit of what Abby's talking about.
Yeah. And I began to see that people love it. Everybody in my life loved me being vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
Loved
absolutely.
me feeling with them. Everybody loved it. And part of the reason is because my vulnerability wasn't needy. I wasn't saying, I need you
to fix
to
me,
tell me who I am, to fix
this.
me, to love me so I can love myself. I wasn't putting my identity in their hands.
Yeah.
I was just saying, here's the pain I'm in. And it's crazy because I had this moment where I was talking to a friend and I was like, I had just had a week where so many people, like, I had this father figure in my life say, like, hey, I'm carrying you in my heart. Like, it weighs heavily on me what you're going through. Like, I am praying for you. Like, let me know. And he just like held me for a long time. And Justin that week had cried about me in counseling. And my best friend had cried for an hour with her husband about how deep the pain was. My other best friend was like, I want to give you a kidney. I wish I could just give you a kidney and it would be fine. And I could see, like, I was like talking to my friend. And I'm like, I've never in my life experienced where people are carrying the pain with me because they actually see how much pain there is.
Yeah.
Because they actually know how much pain there is. I mean, like, I remember showing up at my friend's house and just being like, I just need to cry in your arms. It's like pain would come up and I just have to get it out. And my friends were great. They just hold me and then I would dump the pain and then we would, get back to being okay again. But for the first time in my life, the battle on the inside was equal to what people saw on the outside. And I had never purposefully, you
mean like it came from what in here and it made its way out enough that there was clarity where you're finally feeling like you're seeing, like, oh, they can see the reality of the war within and I'm not alone in this war suddenly.
They see how bad this is.
Right.
I have never in my life experienced feeling like people see how bad what's going on inside is. Because as a kid, I learned to hold it inside and look fine because my mom would drown if I was, you know what I mean? Like, I learned how to put on it's funny because all these people who grew up with me or like knew me as a kid, when they hear me share my testimony, they're like, you were suicidal. You hated yourself. You had shame and anxiety. Like, we had no idea. I'm like, oh my gosh. I thought for sure everybody could see it because it felt so blaring. So I wasn't trying to hide it. I thought everybody knew. The funny thing is, though, is that I didn't. I didn't know how to go to people for comfort because I had learned don't need your parents for comfort.
Yeah.
And so here I am, and I have like, and it was like the craziest thing. People, and I can't tell you how many people have like emailed me or Instagram messaged me or texted me. Like I have been carried through this process, but I say like this year was me facing my great aloneness.
Yeah.
I grew up as an only kid, and my family dynamics felt crazy out of control. And there's this deep aloneness, self-sufficiency, independence that I've carried my whole life. And all of a sudden, through sickness, I decided to fully let people in and let their love in. And it is like shattered this aloneness for me. It has shattered this. I mean, I can't tell you. It is so crazy. I didn't even think it was possible to have people. Now, not everybody sees how hard it's been and how much I fought. And
Right.
how, like, most people don't actually know the cost of this last year. And even when I could do 20 podcasts, no one would know the cost. How many times I sob cried, scream cried, shook in pain. Nobody knows how much I had to go through besides you.
Right. To the full extent.
Full extent. But I have so many people in my inner circle who really know.
Well, there's so many parts of your story being shared that for the first time you feel understood. Mm-hmm. You actually feel understood because they're able to reflect back the story. They're able to actually express grief. There's something about when someone comes in and connects to suffering through their grief towards us that we go, oh, you must know, because there's some part of you that is feeling my pain. I can see it because you're in pain right now. You must know. You're not just hearing it, you're feeling the weight of it. And I believe that there are times, like, I don't live a lifestyle of living in other people's suffering.
Yeah.
But there are moments where I choose to dip into someone's suffering and I begin to engage it and feel the weight through empathy. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I'm going, oh, this is radically painful. And that's where all of a sudden love breaks in. They get the empathetic experience, and they go, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
May I ask you a question?
I remember real quick before you ask, I just remember like I've had so many of my friends cry with me because they can see the cost of like just surviving every day because I'm sharing with them what it's like. And I've just, we talk about this in the Compassion Project, but attunement actually is how your brain gets through the pain process, is feeling like you're with somebody's with you. And just having people like also realizing like my life matters that much to people that they're willing to carry it with me. I've, in the Bible, they have all these like crazy grieving rituals that they would do where like they would have people who grieved. If somebody died, they had people who were literally mourners. That was like their job. They would come grieve with you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so smart. Like, it's like a thing. Like when you have people, I've had people cry over me. I've had people like, I've just never felt so fought for. And that's like here's the thing. In life, you have two choices. Circumstances can come and prove everything you believed from your childhood.
Yep.
This could have proved I'm alone. I'm always going to have to fight to survive. I'm always going to have this battle raging. I'm all of that stuff. Or the thing that could prove it true can actually create a whole new story.
Yep.
And I can see this whole new story of love being written over my soul. Like the little girl who I've been able to access her pain is the little girl who's actually like, for the first time, I can visualize her as a little kid. No one knew how crazy my inside world was. Mm-hmm. Now I can imagine the way I live now, being that little girl and having all my people comfort. And I think all the time, like, yeah, I couldn't have changed the dynamics going on around me growing up, but I didn't have to lock everything inside.
No. You know, this is a side note. It's not a huge thing. Just a little blip. It made me think when you're sharing about how people have loved you. Our friend Victoria has showed up repeatedly where you've just asked her to come over and for hours just petted your head, like sat there and petted your head. And,
when I have horrible migraines, she
and
comes.
Stuff like that. But there's these moments, there's a reason I'm sharing this. I know that in conversation with her, that there's something even inside of her that feels so alive.
Totally.
Getting to participate.
She's loving
you.
it.
And you feel loved. And one of the things that causes people to be really hesitant about inviting people in is because they believe that they're a burden. That's oftentimes a story that's written into our history and our childhood, is that because I don't get a need met, I'm a burden. And so we think that we're taking from people. Mm-hmm. And I know that
this is exactly what I'm saying I went through this year, is breaking that idea that I'm a burden. 100%. Sorry, keep going.
No, and so there's different level. This ties into something else. I was going to ask you a question with this as well. But there's reasons for why people won't let love in. And that is one of them. I'm a burden, I'm taking from someone, rather than, oh no, this is an on-ramp for them to express their strength and what they have to give. And it causes them to feel like they have something to show up to. Like all of a sudden people have certain purposes, whether it's a purpose in the relationship with you or other people, or it's a purpose in life that now gets to be fulfilled. Like, oh, I have a gift inside of me that has a purpose that can actually make an impact on someone. So you have to understand, you're giving someone a gift as much as they're giving you a gift, for those who are listening in this. Now, there'd be some people who would say, this sounds like a self-indulgent episode. It's self-centered and selfish. It's about you and your pain. What would you say to those people? Because I know that those people exist, because those people... Those people also have such deep self-hatred going on inside of them that they're not aware of. And I want you to kind of talk into that and how that is self-hatred and how it's not actually selfish or conceited. You're saying to tell my story, or you're saying the story of allowing people to love me? No, I'm asking, what would you say to people who would combat what you're saying? Oh, about my journey, or about the journey, you mean? Well, I don't know what you're saying. I clearly, you do not know what I'm saying. Well, if someone came to you and was like, that sounds selfish. Why would I do that? That would be selfish, so selfish. To let people love you? Yeah, and self-centered. And oh, you know why? Because listen, I'm so much easier to love this way. I've been around those people who refuse to let you love them, and they're passive aggressive, and then they have these huge needs somewhere else that they're mad that you didn't meet, or that they end up having an explosion like, oh, I wish you would have just told me you needed 10 minutes of my time. I would have given it to you. Now I'm having to spend 5 hours having to console you through this thing that you da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, I have been around the people who don't actually let you love them, who don't actually communicate their needs, who don't actually say like, hey, can I come cry on your couch? And you spend hours beating around the bush with them, or then their pain grows so big that it's huge and it's overwhelming. Yep. And here's the point inside of that. So those people who would sit back and go, this is selfish and self-absorbed to actually process like this and invite people in, let me tell you, what it creates is a self-absorbed world. Because when your emotions and your heart have been put on the back burner for so long, and the volcano happens and it gets so big that, and you become bitter and resentful towards people around you, then it becomes all about you. Because everyone's going, oh, that person has big angry emotions. Oh, that person is exploding in life. We now need to turn everything towards them. Not because there was an invitation, but now because we're at critical mass. Yeah. So good. I wanted to, do you have more to say on that? No, I just think the way I can love people the most is by letting them love me, so that I don't become a selfish, self-absorbed jackass. Well, and here's the other thing. So I've had friends, like, I'm loving them and I can tell they're not letting it soak in. Yeah. Because they feel guilty or they feel like a burden. Yeah. And then I'm like, literally, you are wasting my time. Oh, yeah. That's because even I worse. Want to love I'm you. Like, okay, I want to love you. Why am I standing here? I'm leaving. Go suffer until you're ready to let this in. Totally. But I also know, like, because I'm just allowing it, it's like I'll go over and
people love feeling like their love matters.
Yes.
People love feeling like they have something to offer you.
Yeah.
And so when we actually allow the people around us to love us, now there is a reciprocal. I didn't just have a completely self-absorbed year. I loved people. That's a huge part of how you make it through sickness, is finding ways to not focus on yourself.
It's the balance.
Or else you will drown.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about my friends feeling like they had comfort to give. They had strength to give. And there's something about fighting for something inside of community where it bonds you together with people.
Yeah. Totally.
So I just wanted, and to all of you out there, I mean, I can't tell you how many times like I have wanted to give up or be like, I don't know how I can make it. And then I get like, somebody says they're praying for me. I literally have felt so loved. I've never felt so moved by prayer. I mean, anytime somebody's like, I prayed for you today, I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody thought of me today.
Yeah.
I am not alone. Oh my gosh, I'm facing the biggest physical battle I've ever been in. And it feels like it's going to take me out some days. And then I'll get a message from somebody that's like, thank you so much for the podcast. It's changing our lives. And I'm like, I thank God something is helping people. And it's not just that I'm slowly dying here. Like it just has been food to my soul. So I do want to thank all of the listeners. I felt supported in a way that I know is healing this broken part of me as a little kid.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
So I wanted to share just kind of two more parts of my journey of things that like, as I processed, I would realize I had emotional flashbacks. Whatever huge emotions were coming up about sickness typically represented something that I needed to look at. So I basically, anytime I felt something about sickness, I would dig into and investigate, what is this? And so I remember one of the things that was so painful for me was this idea that I have a good attitude about being sick, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm positive. I find ways to embrace life. I find ways to show up. And I have this cycle this whole year where it feels like I keep getting pushed past capacity.
Oh yeah.
So like, oh, I had a good attitude when I had to cut out all of these foods. I had a good attitude when I had to cut out all of these foods. I had a good attitude when I had to cut out all of these foods. Now you want to take the one last thing I can eat? And then I feel like pushed past capacity. And I would feel this over and over again. I had a good attitude about not being able to walk. I had a good attitude about sitting on a couch for 7 hours a day. I had a good attitude about and then now you want me to be in excruciating pain while all that. It's like, I always felt this cycle.
Yeah.
And it would break me. I would be like, how much more can I take?
Yeah. I remember you being so many times you've said things like, this is going to break me. This is going to break me. Like, how far do I have to go? How much do I have to lose before this breaks me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And part of that was me going back to a very horrible idea of God. Like, once I'm broken enough, I don't consciously believe this, but it came out when I was sick, which was like, how much do I have to break before it'll be enough? Isn't there a way that we can cry uncle? Like, I was fine with this. And I remember talking to my counselor. She has this great dream that she had. In this dream, this woman was running from an intruder in her house, and she ran into the bathroom, was trying to get away, but they got into the bathroom. The intruder had a knife, and it went to stab her. And so she closed her eyes and braced for death, but then opened her eyes a couple seconds later and realized he wasn't killing her. He was just taking chunks out of her body. So he was taking a chunk out of her shoulder, taking a chunk out of her thigh, taking a chunk out of her knee, her fingers. And so she quickly realized, I'm not going to die, but I have to figure out how to endure. And so she began to look at it like, oh, it's okay. I don't need that part of my shoulder. I can use my other arm. I can use my legs. Oh, it's okay. I don't need that finger. I have 3 other fingers and a thumb. Every time he cut something out, she said, oh, that's okay because I can just ... That's okay because I can just ... And I recognize this. I mean, and you could say it was actually true, because if you think about how many foods I can't eat and how many activities I can't do, it is actually true. It's like maddening. But I recognized when she told that dream, I was like, oh my gosh, that is my soul. My soul does that. The way that I created to endure hard things is to just say, it's okay, I didn't need it anyway.
Yeah, let it go.
It's okay.
Let it be chopped away.
Yeah. And so I instantly could see myself as a kid. There's so many times when things would like radically change, or I would be like, oh, it's okay that my mom can't do this. Oh, it's okay that no one's doing this. Oh, it's okay that we have to do this. Oh, and my positivity would just always kick in, like, oh, it's fine that this, it's fine that this.
Yeah.
But really that meant I was never grieving loss. And I was never saying, I feel sad about this, or I feel disappointed about this.
What is the need for grief? Because I would like to ask you that question. I know it, but I'd love you to share it for people. Because I mean, recently that's been a part of a process with also one of my clients about grief. Like, why do I need to grieve that? It already happened.
Why don't you say what you told them?
Okay. Well, part of it is that we get stuck in our history, right? Where we didn't get something. So here you have a little boy or a little girl in the past that they needed someone to grieve, to have pain, to cry with them, to share comfort. Part of what grief is an act of comfort.
Yeah.
So the tears and the compassion, it's an act of comfort that begins to happen. So if we don't lend that to our history, if we don't look into our past and go, oh, that's something that needs to be grieved over, there's an abandonment that takes place. Mm-hmm. So there's a part of our soul where we go, I feel so alone. And so many people that come through my office who are widely loved and celebrated in their life by people externally go, I feel alone everywhere I go. It's because there's these moments, these historic moments that are isolated where there hasn't been
an acknowledgement.
And part of that is the grief. Like you, Abby, didn't actually, because you denied what happened, mm-hmm. you couldn't grieve what happened. And where you couldn't grieve what happened perpetuated you feeling alone in the world, like you have to be the biggest person and that you're all abandoned inside of stuff. And so part of the healing process for aloneness or the feeling of abandonment begins I'm going to grieve the historic moments that feel like they're surfacing. You know, like someone could look at their life and go, does that mean I have to cry over every little thing? No, that's not it. But there'll be moments that your soul will bring up, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, you'll get a flash of like, I remember when I was a kid. And for an example, I had one client that said, when I was a kid, my parents never spent time with me. Like I'd literally go with them. I was an only child and they would leave me. He was like, I have this memory of being on a beach, making a sandcastle off in the distance. And my parents were doing their own thing and they never felt like they wanted to be around me. And I was like, there it is. That's the moment to grieve. You don't need to grieve a million of them. Yeah. Right now, your soul's showing you something that's really sad about a little kid.
Right.
And he was like, I don't understand. Why should I grieve over that? But in his life, he feels really alone and disconnected from intimacy. Mm-hmm. And so as he started the process of grieving, and even grieving this part right here, it actually entered into a place where his intimacy and his relationships started going up. Mm-hmm. He started feeling so much more connected to people because that part of him got resolved.
And I would say not only that, but I don't think so what I started doing was not only that, but changing my going forward, because I recognized, the way I protect myself is adaptability. It's fine. I didn't have expectations about this. I can change my expectations. I'll change my expectations really fast. Yeah. I'll just make something else that I'm excited about. I'll just do something else and I'm like adapting all of the time inside. And so it was not only do I need to grieve, like if I could have just said I was sad, I wouldn't have had to have sadness be stuck in my body.
Yeah.
Like as a kid, if I could have just said, I'm sad, this is disappointing.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't have had to hold on to it. It's actually so much faster. If you just feel it when it comes, it's so much faster. You feel it and you move through it. It's when we stuff it that then it takes years to unstuff. And then we start thinking emotions just take forever to work through and you can't ever get anywhere. And that creates the problem. So I'm looking at it being like, I need to just be able to say, I'm really like, oh, I never, somebody would say like, oh, I'm so sorry that you can't eat sweet potatoes, or I'm so sorry that you can't eat carrots or whatever. And I'd be like, oh, it's okay because blah, 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 blah. Instead of being like, thank you. Yeah, it is sad that I can't even eat vegetables.
Totally.
Like actually allowing myself to just acknowledge, and all of this is going to be in the Compassion Project series, but just acknowledging what is, owning what the story actually is. I don't have to go into pity about what I can't eat.
No.
But I can acknowledge that it is sad that I can't eat things. It is sad that my list of what I can eat is like 10 things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's sad. And I can be sad about it and acknowledge it and move on and not have it control me.
I've said this before, but one of my definitions of pity, especially as this because you're sharing so much that involves people actually caring and feeling for themselves and allowing people to care for them. And it's very easy to go, that just feels like a bunch of pity or self-pity. But one of my definitions of pity or self-pity is a feeling of powerlessness in your grief. So, oh, I'm really sad and I don't believe that anything can be done to solve this. And that's where the powerlessness comes in, and woe is me. This is always going to be the same. It's never going to change. Whereas grief is like, no, this is really painful. But healthy grief is, this is really painful. I'm sad about it. And I can see the light that there's something powerful that can come out of this, whether it's love getting to me or me overcoming something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one last thing and then we'll have you share about your stuff. But, for me, I started to begin to recognize, I was like, I have a lot of orphan mentality. And what I mean by orphan mentality is I'm not going to be okay. No one's going to meet my needs. I have to provide everything for myself. If I don't do it myself, it won't get done. Those kinds of thoughts, right? Is what and could you attest to that being true in my life?
Yes, 100% true. Unquestionably true.
I remember when my counselor asked me about feelings, she's like, what do you feel like maybe the most? Or I was like, in the season of dealing with sickness, I don't feel this the most in life, but I was like, I'm not going to be okay. She's like, that's not actually a feeling. That's a statement. I'm like, I know. It's fear is the feeling. But so I began to recognize exactly what you're saying, because I had abandoned myself. And because of the circumstances in my childhood, there was this orphan mentality. And so I could literally see like, I know that my body's going to break out of this, like out of sickness. Cause I've been able to see, like, I see all the emotional dots and I know that I'm creating a strong internal world for myself that sickness can't stick to. Like I've been able to see like, I think I'm digging the seed of sickness out, the emotional soil of it, like the places where it's been able to take root inside of me. I can see it, but I've known that this orphan mentality has something to do with this. So I went for Thanksgiving. My whole family came to San Francisco or Oakland, which is awesome. And first time ever. And so I went there. I was so sick. I mean, I was so sick.
I don't even know how you even got in the car and drove.
I spent 2 days straight just trying to get enough energy to leave the house. I had to call people to come over to help me pack because I was so sick I couldn't. You ended up waking up in the middle of the night. I woke up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I was off in Texas hunting, so I was separate. But go ahead.
Yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night in such excruciating pain. I had been processing if I should go to the emergency room. You woke up at the exact same time as me.
And I didn't have a phone, so I couldn't call her. But I woke up and I just felt like I just needed to start praying. And I start crying for you and praying for you while I was just laying in bed.
Yeah, and it's like something from that thing shifted. I had multiple people call me that morning and say, we're praying for you. Yeah. And then I had enough energy to make it there. And I knew I was supposed to go. It's interesting with sickness because sometimes you need to rest and just, if your body's saying no, listen to it. And sometimes you need to be like, no, I'm living. And it's a hard balance because it's gray. Which one is which? Is this one of those times I'm supposed to just rest, or is this one of those times I'm supposed to push in? I said supposed to, like I created a fake word in there. So I ended up going to Thanksgiving. It was wonderful. It was so good to see my family. It was so great. But I ended up learning all about my family there. It was so random. My cousin's like really into genealogy, and they start telling me these stories. On my mom's side, 2 of the grandparents were orphaned in horribly tragic, crazy ways. And I was like, this is crazy. My mom's dad was, and my mom's grandma was. So both sides of her family line had crazy orphan stories. I could tell you they're wild.
My mom. Your mom's side, and then your dad's side?
Then I called my dad because I was like, this is so random. I'm dealing with orphan mentality in my life.
Yeah, and it was crazy orphanage. I mean, we're not going to go into the story, but it was crazy orphan, like kicked out of the car after one of the parents died and told, I don't want to raise you.
Yes. Like horrible. One person was kicked out of their country. Like they shipped her off to America
without any place to go.
Yeah. And they took her inheritance. Like a crazy story. So, I call my dad and I realize that I ask him about his family line, and he has the same thing. Same thing, crazy orphan story over there. And I'm like, this. So 3 people directly close to me were very traumatically, where traumatically is not a word, very, very painfully orphaned, where as soon as their parents died, everything like blew up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is so crazy. Well, then a friend sends me this video. And this is what I'm saying. If you're just intentional, things will fall into place as you go.
It's really cool.
So this friend sends me this video. She'd sent it to me months before. I hadn't looked at it, but I finally had time. It's called It Didn't Start With You. And it is this psychologist who...
Say that again. It didn't start with you.
Yeah, it didn't start with you. Mark Wooleyman, I think is Wooleyman. I don't know. If you look it up on YouTube, it's a video. It's about 30 minutes long. And he is like a counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist, all those degrees get confused to me. So he's one of those people who works with people and has a degree for it. And in it, he talks about how many times we have a sentence or a language or emotions that we have that are actually passed down. And he goes into the epigenetics of it, the science of how trauma can get passed in your DNA through your family line, and where you are actually manifesting it. He tells this story of this girl who kept wanting to kill herself, and the way she wanted to kill herself was to step into the incinerator. Her brother worked at a metal factory,
and she wanted to burn herself
alive, which is a horrific way to do it. But so she wanted to do that over and over again. He finally meets with her, and so he does this thing. He gives a quiz like, tell me about, research your family. She finds out her grandma was the sole survivor at a Holocaust concentration camp, where every other person was burned in an incinerator.
But she wasn't. And
she had survivor's guilt. And so that guilt of, I need to do this so that I'm with them. I should have been burnt with them. Literally got carried to the granddaughter. As soon as she recognized that, she was able to forgive her grandma, give it back, like acknowledge and validate it and let it go. And then she never had it again, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But he has story after story after story. So I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally know the language of orphan because I have felt it so deeply in this last season. I've never felt it like that before, but in this last season. And I thought it probably makes sense because when my mom almost died and my family broke apart, it probably like triggered this kind of thinking that is in our DNA. And so I don't feel like traumatized by that. I'm like, ooh, I get to be powerful. So I've like validated and acknowledged what happened in our family and acknowledged how hard it would have been for them, and then given them their emotions back, and then been able to speak over myself truth. But I love it because it's like this year has been piece after piece, and it's every angle. It's dealing with my own aloneness. So when I heard that, I didn't think, oh, all of my aloneness is from their stories. No, because I had my own aloneness from my own life. But I was able to be like, okay, we're weeding out all of this. And it just felt very empowering. And now I can look back and see like were breadcrumbs at every point, bringing up things. And then I would face them. I would grieve them. I would cry them out. I'd speak new truth. And it has happened until now. There really is. And there's like way more revelations I've had than I could ever put into podcasts, and way more huge emotional journeys I've been on. But what I will say is all the way until now. So I went through this year. I would call it like the death burial year, where it just felt like so much pain, so much grief, so much facing my crap. Everywhere I turn, I'm triggered. And now it feels like my strength emotionally is coming back. Like now I see I'm going to have a future. I'm not going to be sick like this forever. Yeah. Like for the first time, I'm like, I'm going to be okay. Like that question in my soul that wasn't a rational question. It wasn't a rational emotion. It wasn't logical, but it was screaming every time something bad went wrong with my body. I'm like, I'm not going to be okay. And I couldn't even tell you what not okay meant. It just was an emotion. But now it's like, and it didn't just get answered from me dealing with my grandparents' stuff. It got answered the whole time until now, because we ripped out so many lies and bad belief systems. Now there's been like good soil to plant new belief systems in. And when you grieve and pull out bad beliefs, you actually now have open soil to plant good ones, which is like, I'm going to be okay. No matter what happens to me, I'm going to be okay.
And it doesn't come from a perspective of being hyper, the glass is half full. It comes from an actually deeper truth, because you're uprooting the things that are under there. You're not just glossing and covering them over. Yep. You're pulling them up. You're looking at them face to face. You're dealing with the lies that are inside of them, and you're getting to a higher truth. I love that. So we're going to wrap it up today.
Yeah. I have one more thing that I just want to say.
Okay.
Is something has shifted now where I don't know when and I don't know how, but I know it's not going to be like this forever. Yeah. And I could not say that for the whole last year. I was like, I'm drowning. This season's never going to end. I'm never going to get out. Yep. This is the death of me. I'm never going to be whole again. I'm never going to feel good enough to work again. I'm never, like I could not see that there'd be an end. And now I'm like, no, I know. It's just a matter of time. It is just a matter of time. And so if you're out there and you're in that season where everything's being ripped up and there's grief and there's pain and it feels overwhelming, I felt like I died in it. I was drowning in it. And I could not see, I remember just asking somebody, will I ever be okay again?
Yeah.
Will I ever be put together again? Which is similar to what you went through. I just want to tell you, whatever you're facing, whatever you're looking at, you're going to be okay. And you're going to make it through this season.
Yeah. I believe I'll say what I've walked away with. I'm not going to talk about my story.
Yeah.
We're going to end it. But this last thing I want to say is, through everything that I walk through in my body and watching Abby walk through what she has, I believe that the fullness of abundant life can only be found through death and resurrection. There has to be a death process that we go through. Death to the lies that are inside of us, the perspectives that we have, coming to the end of self, like a healthy end of self, our self-sufficiencies, our self-hatreds, dying to that, letting that all die inside of us. And it feels excruciating, the death process. It feels terrifying, because everything is being looked at in that, and everything is being excavated from the deepest parts of our being in it. But the promise for anyone who's in the death process And that's allegorical, metaphorical, and maybe even physical. Like as you're in what feels like a real death process in your life, I promise you that the resurrection to come on the other side leaves you so free and abundantly living, because on the other side of death is the knowledge that you know that you faced some of your greatest fears and they didn't destroy you. And all of a sudden, what you found value in, or what gave you safety, is all gone, and you realize that what really sustains you is love, not what you can produce, not what you can be. All of that is all stripped down, and it's almost like you become like an immovable and an unshakable person. Not that you're not affected, and not that bad things don't happen, but all of a sudden, it's like you hit this almost nirvana, this state of being where you go, okay, well, I've been to the worst. I've faced the greatest things. There's peace for me. I'm going to be taken care of. I'm going to live. And whatever life that is that I live, whether it's another day or it's months or it's more years, I just know that I am free now inside of my heart. And I'm no longer a slave to these things that kept me feeling so small, inadequate, powerless, and insignificant. So with that,
I want to just say, you're saying that as somebody who went through this season.
Yeah.
Like, in case you guys don't know, like, he got so sick for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
He almost died.
Yeah.
And he had to go through this exact process I'm going through of breaking self-sufficiency, learning how to receive comfort, all like letting people love him. Basically, we both had to go through the same journey.
Yeah.
But you're actually saying it from the other side.
Yeah.
Like, I'm saying it because I feel the hope and I know the truth, and it's like real to me now because I've weeded out stuff, but I'm not to the other side yet.
Yeah.
You are on the other side saying it as fact.
And I live most of my days, almost every one of them, with this sense of gratitude and not a false sense of optimism, but just true hope rose up inside of me to go, I'm hopeful. I don't know what it's going to look like, and I'm not going to create unrealistic expectations, but there's been an actual expectancy built inside of me that the goodness of God and the goodness of life is going to shine through in the darkest of moments, and that there's going to be beauty from all the things that feel painful and destructive, and there's a hope inside of me. And we're going to get into some of what was even further developed in me and what some of my process was with me and Abby in the next episode, because we ran out of time in this. And so we're going to go a little deeper into Justin's personal heart in that. So stay tuned, check it out, rate, review, subscribe, and share if you got anything out of this episode. And remember, stumvalconsulting.com/courses/The Compassion Project. If you want to check out that material on compassion that can help support Abby and I's journey to Spain and her health, and also support your heart health. So,
I have one thing of homework.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Do it. And then we got to go.
Be vulnerable. Find a way. If you have things that people don't know that you're processing or you're going through, and maybe loving somebody's vulnerable, telling them that you love them feels vulnerable, or maybe sharing that you're really going through it, or whatever it is that you think people will judge. Like, I want people to get to experience being known.
Yeah.
Because I'm recognizing it is so delicious. Yum, 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 yum,
Great way to
yum,
put it.
yum.
And goodbye.